Today on the RN2writer show, we are answering all of your frequently asked questions about freelance writing for nurses, and we're giving you a free gift that awards 1.5 CEs. You're not going to want to miss that. Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us for this welcome meeting and Q&A by RN2writer. My name is Beth. I'm the founder of RN2writer, and also with us today is Shelby, our customer success manager. The way that this meeting is going to flow, first of all, it's not a sales meeting. I literally have nothing to sell you in this meeting. This is to talk about freelance writing for nurses, what it is, who does it, who the clients are, a little about me and the company, and then we also want to show you how to access any products you have purchased from us on our website. So let me get started. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching the recorded version of the video because, like me, you're shy, or you think, I'm not going into any live meeting because they're just going to try to high pressure sell me, that is not the case. And even though you're watching this video, you are still welcome to join us on a live welcome meeting as well. So we'll look forward to seeing you, and then we can answer your questions personally. Okay, let me start by telling you a little about this company and myself. My name is Elizabeth Haynes. I'm a nurse, I'm an award-winning journalist, and I'm a former six-figure freelance writer. I'm a former writer only because this company, which was my side hustle, took off so dramatically that I had to retire from writing just to run this company. RN2writer exists to help other nurses and clinicians learn how to be freelance writers too. So I wanted to just quickly share this, if I can make the Zoom controls work. So I launched RN2writer as a blog in 2014. You can see my first post was August 30th of 2014. And I launched this project because I was getting so many emails from other nurses who would be researching health information online, would see my name, would go find my website, send me an email, track me down and say, hey, wait a minute, can I be a writer too? And I would always say, yes, you can. And I would send back a nice email response of how to get started. But eventually that trickle of emails became a flood of emails and I couldn't keep up. So I thought a more efficient way of doing this is to start a blog. So that's what I did. And then about 5 years after starting this blog, I was still getting questions from nurses, but the questions changed from, can I do this, to, hey, can I just hire you to teach me this? And so that's when I realized that, again, the more efficient way for me to help as many of my fellow nurses as I could was to launch a course and coaching business. So we did that about 5 years ago, and that is the RN2writer that you know today. You can purchase an ebook, you can purchase courses. We have an entire curriculum path, which I am going to talk about a little later. But for right now, I want to go into the frequently asked questions that we get about freelance writing, especially for those of you who haven't purchased our ebook, Design Your Dream Career as a Nurse Writer, which goes into a lot of this. But a lot of times, nurses don't have a lot of time to devote to reading an ebook. They just want someone to answer their questions. So that's what we're going to do today. And one of the first questions that we get is, what do you mean by being a professional writer? What do you mean by freelance writing, health writing, being a nurse writer? So I want to give you some examples of the types of things that nurses write. So let's start with health journalism. I and many, many nurses, our coach, Marika Veroman-Durning, my friend Jennifer L.W. Fink, and many other nurses got their start by writing health articles for publications. This is an article that I wrote years ago when I was starting out for Next Avenue, which is the PBS website for older adults. 5 ways to sneak exercise into your daily routine. So they hired me, commissioned me to write this article. I wrote it. They paid me. Health journalism or health articles are an excellent way for any nurse to get started in this industry. But what are some other types of writing? Well, the writing opportunities are all around you. Your brain just hasn't been trained yet to recognize them. So let's look at a website. For example, here's Stanford Medicine, bariatric surgery and medical weight loss. Experts in bariatric and metabolic disorders. Some human being wrote this web page. And this web page was written by a freelance writer, not by a staff writer, because most health systems do not employ staff writers. But the way that I know positively this was written by a freelance writer is because I wrote this. They hired me to write this. So web pages, your own health system, health systems in your state, they all need this type of content, and they all need it all the time, and they pay writers to do this. Let's look at another type of writing that health systems often commission. This is Temple Health. This is a blog post on supplemental oxygen, preparing for safe summer fun. Notice this is attributed to a certified registered nurse practitioner. She didn't write this. I guarantee you there is not a practicing clinician in the world who also has time to sit around and spend hours creating blog posts for their health system like Temple Health. This was ghostwritten by a freelance writer. And again, the way I know that this was ghostwritten is because I have worked with Temple Health personally, and I have ghostwritten many of these types of patient-facing blog posts that were published under the name of a clinical provider there. So this type of blog post, just giving information to the patient. This is also a nice way for nurses to get started in this industry because what is this? It's patient education. It's what we do every single day. Every single day, we educate patients. And this is just an extension of that. Except this is going to reach thousands or potentially millions of people, right? And speaking of patient education, what about things like public health blogging? Well, that's another opportunity for nurses. WebMD used to, at least, I don't know if they still do, publish a public health blog, and I was honored to be chosen by them to be their only public health blogger during the pandemic. So you can see my byline here. You can see the date. We produced a ton of content together throughout this emerging public health event when the science was changing rapidly. And it was a lot of fun. And again, this is a great way for nurses to get started is by doing things like writing public health pieces because it's just an extension of what we already do. Now, let me shift gears a little bit. What I have been showing you is all called consumer-facing content. B2C, business to consumer. This is information published by an organization or a publication to benefit the general public. But what about in your job as a nurse? Have you ever come across a company that is marketing to you, and they may want to offer you a white paper? Maybe you're reading Modern Healthcare, for example, and if you scroll down here, this is all news reporting up here, and that is its own opportunity for nurse writers. That's journalism. But if we scroll down here, keep scrolling, we're going to see sponsored content. Here we go. I went right past it. Redesigning health for longevity. See how it says sponsored content? That means that they commissioned a freelance writer to create this content on behalf of a company that's trying to market something to a healthcare professional. So let's see. This one is an interview about how to use healthcare strategy and benefit an aging population. This is to advertise this person's company, Huron Consulting Group. A lot of times this content is what they call gated. I'm sure you have encountered this. You see something interesting on a website, a study or something like that, and you think, oh, I'd like to get the report on that. But before you can, you have to enter your name and email address. That's called gated content. And here's an example of a white paper that was at one time gated. People put their email in and they could get this white paper on, let's see, reimagining scientific communications strategies for digital transformation. And then they could get this helpful information, help them do their job. Maybe they're a CTO at a health system. Maybe they're a CEO. Maybe they're a CNO. These are all written for the executive suite in healthcare. This is a white paper that I was commissioned to write. So again, that's one way that I know that these items, this work goes to freelancers, and nurses are perfect for writing this kind of stuff because we have the insider knowledge of how healthcare works. We know exactly how healthcare works. So this is called business to business, B2B. You don't need to remember that, but that's an entirely separate and very lucrative angle for nurses to get involved in writing. Now, here's an interesting thing that also you can get paid to write, which is video scripts. For example, here's a video from nursing.com on how to start an IV like a pro. You may not realize it, but the vast majority of these types of videos, people don't just go on camera and wing it. They have a script. They memorize a script, or they have a teleprompter app and they read the script. And someone has to write those scripts for them. I have written several scripts in my career. Unfortunately, they were so long ago that they're not available online anymore because they got outdated, which is good news because it means that kind of work is constantly evolving and there's more and more opportunities. Well, who among us couldn't write a script on how to start an IV for somebody? Another opportunity that is kind of hidden, that it's not hidden, it's in plain sight, but people don't register it as a writing opportunity, is newsletters. This is a newsletter I received when I had Blue Cross Blue Shield back in January of 2024. I'm sorry that all the images are broken. It's because it's from 2024, but you can see it's the member newsletter for all the BCBS people. There's an article here about using your benefits and coverage, but down here, there's also health and wellness articles. How to get big benefits from small weight loss. Make your health a priority. Prevent yourself from cervical cancer. Someone wrote this. And I can almost guarantee that someone was a freelance writer. And these companies want nurses to write this content because we have the insight, we have the empathy, we understand the nuance, we know the questions patients ask. But because there's so much information out there in the world, you don't necessarily yet look at this and think writing opportunity. But it is a writing opportunity. Now, what if you say, I'm interested in writing, but I don't know if I want to write about health anything. I'm kind of burned out on that. Who knows? Maybe not. Well, that's fine. Maybe you want to write for, I don't know, the History Channel. Maybe you want to write about something that you find fun, like history or art or hiking or something like that. I used to do that. This is an article I wrote clear back in 2019 about Amelia Earhart's Navigator. Fascinating story, Amelia Earhart. Anyway, I used to write all the time for the History Channel, and yeah, I got paid. I got paid to do this. So that's a small sampling of the types of writing we talk about when we talk about nurses being writers, when we talk about freelance health writing. That was 8 examples of freelance writing, and believe me, there are dozens or even scores more types of writing than that that you can do as a professional writer. Now I'd like to just touch on some other frequently asked questions we get once people understand the opportunity that's out there. One big question that they want to ask is, all right, but what about artificial intelligence? Isn't ChatGPT going to take all the writing jobs? Well, the answer to that, to be perfectly candid, is AI is disrupting the writing industry. There are going to be changes. However, health writing is particularly insulated from the impact of this disruption by AI because, well, several reasons. Health content has to be very accurate, and artificial intelligence chatbots currently just lie and hallucinate way too much. They also cannot add any humanity to a piece, and very frequently, that's what our clients want. They want human-created content because they want that empathy to come through. Their goal is not just to convey information. When we looked at these blog posts from, for example, Temple Health, the purpose of that is not to convey information. It's to make an emotional connection with the reader so that when the reader needs medical care, they think, I should go to Temple. That's the purpose. And AI can never infuse that level of compassion and humanity into a piece. I like to say AI has never sat in an exam room holding a sobbing patient while they poured their heart out. And we have as nurses. And we have gained insight from that, and we have gained a knowledge of the things patients really ask that AI can never have. So AI is disrupting the industry. Companies are using artificial intelligence in many ways in various aspects of especially content marketing. But all of it has to be fact-checked, edited, and so on. And there is still high demand, especially for clinicians, to actually do the writing, not for artificial intelligence. Many, many companies have clauses in their freelance contracts right now that say you're barred from using artificial intelligence. That's going to change, no doubt. But we're teaching writers how to stay in front of AI here at RN2writer. We've already produced some trainings on how to AI proof your business, how to learn how to use it effectively, and stay ahead of that curve, because whenever there's disruption in an industry, and believe me, over the course of my 30-year career, I've seen disruption many times on this scale. Disruption means huge opportunity. And the writers who survive that are the ones who are seeking the opportunities and filling those gaps. So don't worry about AI. This is still a viable career path. Another question we get frequently is, do you have to be an RN to do this? Because after all, the name of our company is RN2writer. The answer is no. Any nurse, any physician, any PA, any healthcare clinician or professional of any kind, frankly, can be a health writer. When I named the company RN2writer, it was about my journey as an RN to becoming a writer. But it doesn't mean that you have to be an RN. Nor do you need an active license. An active license, in fairness, does give you a competitive advantage for reasons I'm not going to go into right now that have to do with search engine optimization. But you don't need an active license. The vast majority of health writers today aren't clinicians at all, have no healthcare background. They're trained journalists or they have MBAs as content marketers. So don't worry about the licensure. Related to that, people say, how do you maintain your nursing license if you're a writer? Well, in the US, most states only require nurses to complete continuing education units. We're a certified continuing nursing education provider. We grant continuing education credits with all of our core programs. So for example, the ebook, you can get 3 CEs for reading that. You can get 30 CEs for doing our Get Paid Well to Write program, for example. But then some nurses say, well, my state or my province has a practice requirement. It says you have to complete umpty-dump number of hours of nursing practice. How are you getting around that? Well, we're not getting around anything because those nurse practice acts don't define what is the practice of nursing. What do they mean by you have to have so many hours of nursing practice? Most nurses think bedside. But if that's the case, ask yourself, how are CNOs maintaining their license? When's the last time you saw your CNO putting the scrubs on for 6 months out of the year to go practice at the bedside? Never. How do informaticists maintain their license? How do other nurse entrepreneurs, such as those who have IV infusion clinics, how are they maintaining their license? They may be in a purely administrative role. What about nurse educators? What about college instructors? Again, they're not putting scrubs on and going to the bedside to provide care. So you have to ask yourself, what do they mean by that? Well, personally, I do consider writing to be the practice of nursing because it's patient education, plain and simple. That is the foundation of nursing practice. But if you want to feel better, you can contact your board of nursing and pin them down of exactly what do they mean by that. Personally, I do the continuing education and then I'm good. All right, moving on to another frequently asked question, which is, how much can I really make from this? Well, everything we do is considered bespoke content. In other words, it's custom to the client. So there's a huge range of the fees for any given thing. I showed you blog posts earlier. One client may offer $150 for a blog post that another client would offer $500 for. So it's incumbent on us to keep the communication open and find out about the rate and do some calculations and see what we're willing to work for or not. Now, I had multiple 6-figure years as a freelance writer. It's entirely doable. We have a student and alumna who in 15 months went from knowing nothing about this industry to billing an average of $11,000 a month, doing this full time. Is that typical? I'd say probably not. Probably most people are comfortable in the $5,000 to $6,000 a month range when they get rolling, so within the year. Learning freelance writing is like learning any other industry. Before you make money, you have to learn it, have to get out there and market yourself and make some sales. That's what we do at RN2writer, is teach you how to do all that stuff. But really, the sky's the limit when it comes to income, depending on what you want to pursue. Another question that we get related to our coursework is, how much time is this going to take me? Because we know nurses are busy. And we designed our curriculum to accommodate that. So I always tell people, if you devote an hour a week to the course content, in addition to attending the coaching sessions, which last an hour, and there are 1 or 2 per week, depending on what program you're in, If you devote that 2 to 3 hours a week and just do this at your own pace, eventually you will be a professional writer with a client, because persistence is what it takes. There is no set time frame for how quickly you need to do this. You should work at your own pace based on how much time you have, but also how much energy you have. Because again, I know, my fellow nurses, that you're exhausted a lot of the time. So our courses are flexible to accommodate you and your schedule. When you have more energy, do more. But there's no timeline. It's not like a college course where you have to be done in a semester. You get lifetime access to the course. Another question, I keep looking at my list. Another question that people ask is, how can I do this writing without violating HIPAA? Like, how am I supposed to tell nursing stories without violating HIPAA? Well, I hope it came across from the examples I showed you that this career is not about writing anything about personal experiences in nursing. You should really never or almost never be using personal experience as the basis for an article that you're writing for a client. That's just not how it works. They're always going to specify to you like what sources to use if you need to interview subject matter experts, that type of thing. So there really is no issue of violating HIPAA on your part, because you should never be discussing your own patients or patients you've cared for. And then the last question that I want to cover that we get asked frequently is, who's going to hire me if I don't have writing samples? Like, how can that possibly work? Nobody's going to want me if I can't show that I can write. You're absolutely right. And so I said there's no selling here, but what I'm going to tell you is you should buy our ebook for $5.90, because we go over this. We have a proven model for getting your first writing samples that involves volunteering for a nonprofit organization. And so you volunteer for a nonprofit to write for them, and you write for them, and they publish it. And like magic, you have writing samples, and then you can go forth and get paying clients. All right. I think that covers the major frequently asked questions that we have, and I touched a little on our curriculum. And speaking of the curriculum, Shelby is now going to demonstrate to you briefly how to navigate our platform so you can access the ebook and the community if you decide to purchase it. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Shelby.
So when you first make your purchase with us, you'll receive a couple of welcome emails, and then one of them should include login information. And if you didn't receive your login information, you could always press forget password or email us at hello@rn2writer.com. But once you figure out your login, this is what our homepage will look like. All of your purchases will be under my products down here. When you click on this little person icon, this is where you could access your settings. So if you want to change your email with us, you can, or if you scroll all the way towards the bottom, there's a place to change your password if you would like, because I know our automated passwords can get a little tricky sometimes. So you're welcome to change that here. Just make sure if you do change anything on this page to click save on the top right. If we head back, if you did buy our $5.90 ebook, it's going to be right here. And then when you hit access now, you could download it here. You could either press the download all button or the little download icon here. And once you press that, it'll download directly to your device, so you can read that there. Once you do make a purchase with us, you do get access to our community. So if you did purchase the ebook, you get access to the Health Writer Launch Lounge. And when you click access now, that takes you directly into the community, and we welcome you to introduce yourself or ask any questions you might have. Everybody stays pretty active in our community, so we welcome all questions. And then the other thing I like to highlight is that we have a lot of great free resources. So we have our blog here, and we post a couple of articles every month about different topics. Like we did a lot about AI last month, so those are available here. Or if you happen to read something in one of our products and have a question about it, like let's say you want to know more about LOIs, so you could search that there. And it'll bring up every blog post we have about LOIs. And then we also have a bunch of categories here to choose from once you search. And then we also have a great podcast, which is available on YouTube. And we do post regularly here. Beth does a lot of interviews with successful writers or health experts. And then she also does various videos about different topics that are really great too. And then we also have some downloads that you could download here, spreadsheets, things like that. And I think that's it for my little brief tour.
I think so. Thank you very much, Shelby. That was great. Now, I mentioned in the little teaser before this video started playing that just for attending today and finding out about freelance writing for nurses, that we're going to give you a free gift. So I want to tell you right now what you're getting and how to get it. So the gift we're giving you is a training called Elements of Style: How to Write with Panache. And the lovely thing about this training is whether or not you decide to pursue freelance writing, this writing training will help you with any kind of writing you ever do. By the way, I do have a creative writing degree, and I created this training based on a lot of creative writing concepts. So if you're interested in autobiography, memoir, and so on, you can use this. This training, if you're a nurse, it comes with 1.5 CEs, and the post-test is right here bundled with it. So you can take that, get your CEs. One thing to note is there are 4 states where our CEs are not accepted because we're licensed out of this, accredited through the state of Florida Board of Nursing. And that information is on the post-test screen. So how do you get this? You need to type in your browser bar rn2writer.com/register-free-gift and just enter your email on that form, and voila. If you don't have an account, it will create an account for you at RN2writer, and it will put this training directly into your library almost instantly, so you can access it right away. All right, now if you're coming away from this training super stoked, like I can totally do this. By the way, I want to also point you to the description box to look up our other YouTube video on content templates, because that is going to really show you how embarrassingly easy this type of writing is. Like it's like paint by numbers. It's fill in the blanks writing. Go watch that video next. If you're super stoked about this, we would like to invite you to book an appointment to chat about our products with our admissions advisor. And we have put a link in the description box for the Get Paid Well to Write program, which is our flagship program. And you'll be able to book a call with Tom. No pressure. He's super friendly and knowledgeable. His entire goal is to get to know you and what your goals are for looking at alternative careers for nurses, because something made you seek this out, and he wants to help you figure out your path. So go down there, grab that link, and have a chat with Tom. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again, if you want to now come to a live welcome meeting to meet Shelby and me and have your specific questions answered, feel free to join us. Those meetings are open to the public, and we'll have a link in the description box for the page that shows when they are and has the Zoom links on it. Thank you again for joining us, and I'll see you next time on the RN2writer Show.